Right, this is David Estes, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia, and he's going to lead us off this afternoon, talk about Operation Ghost Busted.
Good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank Glynn County Police Department for hosting us today. This news conference is about Operation Ghost Busted. Again, my name is David Estes. I am the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia. With me are representatives from local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, along with two of my assistant United States Attorneys, Jennifer Kirkland and Greg Galuli. Also with us today are Jermaine Deans, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, FBI Atlanta, Will Clark, Supervisory Senior Resident Agent with the FBI in Savannah, Bobby Banks, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, GBI, Kristen Fripp, Assistant Manager, GBI Coastal Georgia Crime Lab, O'Neill Jackson, Interim Chief, Glynn County Police Department, Captain Stephanie Oliver, Glynn County Police Department, Kevin Jones, Chief, Brunswick Police Department, Neil Jump, Sheriff, Glynn County, and Major Kevin Cheney, Camden County Sheriff's Office. Together, we are all here to announce the unsealing of a federal indictment that names 76 people as part of a conspiracy to move large amounts of methamphetamine, fentanyl, and other illegal drugs into the greater Brunswick area, with much of the conspiracy operated from inside Georgia state prisons. This indictment also alleges at least 3 deaths from overdoses as a result of drugs distributed by some of the defendants involved in this conspiracy. A federal grand jury in the Southern District of Georgia returned a 118-count indictment in December, and it was unsealed today following a massive multi-agency law enforcement operation to take into custody those defendants who weren't already in jail or in prison. The indictment is styled U.S. v. Alvarez et al. Alleges that these defendants participated in a wide-ranging drug distribution conspiracy operating in South Georgia counties, including Glynn, Pierce, Camden, Wayne, Trutland, McIntosh, Toombs, Telfair, Dodge, and Ware. Each of the 76 defendants named in this 133-page indictment is charged with conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute and to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine, a quantity of fentanyl, heroin, and alprazolam. That charge carries a statutory sentence upon conviction of 10 years in prison up to life, and as many of you know, there is no parole in the federal system. 2 defendants are also charged with distribution of a controlled substance resulting in death, with 2 of those deaths from fentanyl overdose and a 3rd from methamphetamine. Make no mistake, illegal distribution of drugs is not a victimless crime. The grave markers of Rebecca Elizabeth Kane of LaGrange, Michael Logue of Brunswick, and Dylan Jones of Brunswick bear silent witness to the toll these illegal drugs flowing into our communities. And we are here to tell you today that the United States Attorney's Office and our law enforcement partners in the Southern District of Georgia are not going to tolerate it. This case is also an example of the coordinated effort of our law enforcement agencies collaborating to fight the armed criminal gangs such as those we allege are involved in this drug trafficking operation. This includes members of the notorious Ghostface Gangsters, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Bloods, and the Gangster Disciples. With greed as their common factor, these gangs work together to import and distribute drugs in our communities, and multiple law enforcement agencies work together to identify, infiltrate, and dismantle these operations. It's also important to note that where there are illegal drugs, there's violent crime and illegal firearms. And violent crime is a priority of my office in the Southern District of Georgia and the counties that we operate in. In Operation Ghost Busted, the indictment includes the seizure of 43 illegal possessed firearms, most often by those who are prohibited by law from having guns, and in possession of individuals using those guns as tools of the illegal drug trade, and I expect that that number may go up. We want to thank these agencies who work together to secure the indictments in this case. It takes a tremendous effort and a lot of work over a long period of time, sustained, in order to carry out operations like this. And so I want to recognize the FBI Coastal Georgia Violent Gang Task Force, the Glynn County Police Department, the Brunswick Police Department, and the Camden County Sheriff's Office, along with the ATF, the GBI, and multiple sheriff's offices and other agencies in the greater Brunswick area. I'd like to now call on FBI Atlanta Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Jermaine Deans, to say a few words, and then we can take some of your questions with caveats. Jermaine.
Good afternoon. This operation today was a united front to stop the wave of violent crime that has swept across coastal Georgia. Residents are safer today, even more than they were last night, with these criminals removed from the streets. This operation will prevent others from feeling the pain and damage this conspiracy has already inflicted. We hope this brings a sense of justice to the families of the 3 victims that lost their lives as a result of this group's activities. Nearly 24 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies came together to make Operation Ghost Busted a success. This is the largest indictment in the history of the Southern District of Georgia. That's no small feat, but an example of the FBI's commitment to continue working jointly to uphold the laws of our country and protect our citizens. This operation was so large, we brought in not only several SWAT teams from FBI Atlanta, but also FBI Columbia, Birmingham, and Jacksonville. We arrested 32 individuals across 5 Georgia counties and 1 person in Jacksonville, Florida. This conspiracy centered here in Glynn County. In addition to removing what we believe are some of the most threatening individuals from our streets, we seized approximately 43 weapons, including assault rifles, during their case, and drugs that would have further plagued our citizens and our neighborhoods. This morning, one of the subjects, Eric Thompson, led agents and officers on a several-mile chase. Once stopped, he was found to be carrying 122 grams of fentanyl. According to the DEA, that's enough fentanyl to potentially kill 160,000 people. During this entire case, the FBI and our partners have taken 325 grams of fentanyl off the streets. Like the United States Attorney stated, much of this activity happened inside Georgia prisons with the help of at least 1 corrupt guard, Desiree Briley, who was named in the indictment. She was taken into custody this morning. The FBI will not tolerate public corruption, especially by fellow law enforcement officials who choose their own personal gains over protecting the public. Our partnerships are vital in carrying out operations like this. We promise coastal Georgia the FBI will not stop and will continue to aggressively pursue all gangs and drug traffickers affecting our communities.
Thank you. Now that's the conclusion of our remarks. However, we'd like to take a few questions. I'm asking you to keep in mind 76 defendants named in this case, along with approximately 40 others charged at the state level, are considered innocent unless and until proven guilty. For that reason, and for the purpose of protecting the investigation and the prosecution and rules of this district, we are constrained in what we can say at this stage. So, while we open it up to some questions, we might not be able to answer some of your questions, and I apologize ahead of time. So, what questions do you have?
Are all 76 in the end who have been indicted in custody?
No.
How many remain?
Nine.
Approximately 9.
And how many of those were, it sounds like some of them were already incarcerated or already.
Approximately
32 were arrested today.
35 were already in custody, is that correct? think that's right, 35.
You said 9 remain at large.
That's right.
You mentioned that one was out of Jacksonville. Are you able to identify him? And also, was he responsible for bringing some of that narcotics across the state borders into Florida, into the Jacksonville area?
I'm going to defer to my AUSAs.
Yes, Larry Taylor was out of Jacksonville. He was arrested today, and he is one of the largest, or a large distributor of fentanyl from the Jacksonville area that was being brought into the Southern District of Georgia.
So Larry Taylor?
Yes.
He was bringing it in from Jacksonville or into Jacksonville?
From Jacksonville into Georgia.
Another question that I had too was, it's no secret that both the Sinaloa drug cartel and the cartel Elizabeth New Generation both operate, use Atlanta as a drug distribution hub for distributing illegal narcotics throughout all of southeastern area of the United States. Did any of these individuals that were listed in that indictment, did any of them have direct ties to those two cartels?
You know, in response to your question, I agree, New Generation and Sinaloa have been active in the United States and the Southeast, but at this time, we can't comment on whether there's a tie to this drug organization.
And I missed this part. Will we be getting mugshots or anything for these people?
Well, you will be able, we're going to send you a link to the indictment. As far as mug shots, no, we don't have that information at this time.
Is there, would we be able to get video or pictures of evidence that were seized, guns that were seized?
Probably not this time. We probably need to get a little farther into the processing stage of, we've got a lot of people here.
And in the beginning, you mentioned something about the prisons, the prisons in Georgia. Can you talk about the role that played, the inmates, I guess, within the prison system, the role that played, and how this stuff was being worked on the outside?
Well, the allegations are,
Yeah, I mean, there are allegations outlined in the indictment that drugs were smuggled into the prison with the assistance of an employee of the Georgia Department of Corrections. And they were activities that were coordinated from inside Georgia Department of Corrections to the outside regarding the distribution of controlled substances.
Which prisons?
Georgia Department of Corrections, it may be listed in the indictment. If it's not, I can't comment. But the indictment it's over 100 pages and provides significant details, much more than we're providing up here at this press
How long
conference.
did this investigation last, and was it something that required undercover work to infiltrate some of this activity?
I'll say that the indictment alleges that the criminal activity occurred over the course of at least 2 years. It's been a long-term OCDEF investigation, which means Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. Regarding the specific investigative techniques, I'd rather not comment on that.
And how were you tipped off to this?
I can't. I don't want to comment on how we received intelligence in this matter.
Can you talk about the lives that are potentially saved now that you've got these major traffickers and distributors indicted?
I can comment on this generally. I think all of the law enforcement agencies here and across the state and the country are absolutely just frustrated with what we're seeing in the inundation in our communities of fentanyl. It's unlike anything we've ever dealt with before. It's one and done. There's no opportunities to intervene. Stuff is deadly. And to the extent that media outlets like you can get the word out to parents about educating them, to educate their children about taking medication from friends, things they think are harmless or mild, Xanax, Adderall, et cetera, those kind of things. When they don't know, they're not prescribed those, that is a pathway to tragedy. Because these things are being flooded, largely by the cartels that you mentioned. They are pressed in pill form, and they're in the communities, and they look like other things. They're made to look like other things.
And these deaths that you talked about, were these deaths as a result of fake pills that were actually fentanyl?
Well, they were fentanyl related.
Yeah, as far as the specifics of the deaths, the charges are outlined in the indictment to relate to fentanyl resulting in the death. and then one of the charges relates to methamphetamine resulting in death. The details of the homicides are something we can't comment on today at this conference.
Last week in Jacksonville, we had a similar press news conference where a lot of drugs, a lot of people arrested, and one of the things that came out of that was, that a lot of that stuff was trucked in, it was flown in, even by the postal, it was mailed in. Was that the same case here in Georgia, specifically by mail?
Again, what I would say, we're limited on what we can comment. In the indictment, there's a section called the manner and means that kind of outlines probable cause of the manner and means of which this organization operated. Those details are in the indictment.
And did you all work with JSO because they released that information just days ago about their drug bust, and now you guys are releasing information? Is this tied or linked in any way?
This was an independent investigation conducted by the parties previously announced.
What message would you like to send to any would-be drug dealers, any would-be traffickers out there who's going to see this tonight?
From the United States Attorney's Office perspective, I represent an office of 20 or 30 attorneys who cover 43 counties in the Southern District of Georgia, 2 of which are represented here. They are tremendous professionals, relentless in their dedication to the protection of this district from drugs and violent crime, and they aren't going to relent until we see results that make our communities safer, not in real terms. So that's just from the United States Attorney's Office. So the message is we're not going to stop just because we've got this major operation that has kicked off today. We've got other operations going all the time. We're constantly focused on violent crime, and drugs distribution is a driver of violent crime. And as far as, and I'll take the liberty to speak for the law enforcement agencies that we partner with that are represented here today, they have worked and worked and worked. They recognize, just like we do, that we are a little bit behind, maybe as a country, dealing with the fentanyl epidemic. We lost approximately 100,000 people to opium drug overdose last year. That's outrageous. We have got to get the citizenry as concerned about this as the law enforcement agencies are, and the United States Attorney's offices around the country. We are not going to quit, and I'm very proud of the work that my office has done, and certainly proud of our partners.
You mentioned that this was operated out of Glynn County. Does that mean, to what degree, administrators of this whole scheme were living here? Was distribution coming out of here? How would you?
I think that the indictment will outline that, and that's what I would ask that you take a look at that. I think it'll be fairly clear from reading the indictment. Okay. Again, I want to thank everybody here. I want to thank the law enforcement agencies that were leading this operation and with their cooperation. Thank you.